Hi there, this is Module 3 and we're going to be looking at the anatomy of the guitar. Now certainly if you already know these terms you can certainly move on to the next module, but I just quickly want to go through this for people who aren't totally familiar with the guitar, and so we make sure we're talking on the same language. So basically what you want to look at on the guitar at the very beginning is the top up here. That's the headstock. This whole piece here is called the headstock. Okay, these are the tuning posts, and some people call them capstans. Basically, it's where the string is going to wrap around. The capstans are attached to something called the machine heads. I'm going to have to turn the guitar upside down for you to see this, but these particular machine heads are encased. If they're not encased, you'll actually see little gears here, okay, and little gears here. And as you tune this, it's going to spin this gear, right, and then turn the post. Now, what you're turning is sometimes called the tuning keys or tuning pegs up here. And so that is all the headstock, okay. This first white little piece here is called the nut. Okay, and we're going to go over why that's important in a minute. Okay, this whole piece down here, this entire section down here is called the neck. On the neck, there's a piece of wood, a thin piece of wood on top of the neck. That's called the fretboard. This particular one is rosewood, but you can also get maple, and maple is kind of a blonde color. So some of you people that have electrics, usually I guess a Strat has, quite a few Strats have maple, but that's a blonde color. And then you have on the fretboard itself these thin pieces of metal all the way up the fretboard, and they're called frets. Now the frets, the number of the fret can be easily identified by what is known as the inlays or dots, and they're kind of markers on the fretboard itself. We've talked about them before, and basically you're going to have, if you have an average guitar, you're going to have a dot on 3, a dot on 5, one on 7, another one on 9, and finally you're going to have double dots on 12. Now there is higher ones up here, but we're not going to go over that just yet. Okay, so that's going to help you find your way around the neck. Okay, let's see. Down here is the body of the guitar. This whole section here is known as the soundboard, and it's important to note that with the soundboard, the more expensive guitars that you buy, generally the soundboard is going to be a solid wood, and quite often you'll hear people referring to guitars as solid tops. This is a solid spruce, and the reason why that's important is you're going to find that solid woods will resonate better, and you'll get better sustain, and just overall tone is better. Okay, if you don't have solid top, basically it's a kind of a ply material, and they're good too, but the solid tops definitely are better, and they're much of a step up. So here is the sound hole, and the strings as you play them will vibrate over the hole, and the sound will bounce around inside the box itself and eventually come out. That kind of amplifies the sound. And down here you have the bridge. This whole section here is called the bridge. This white part here, sometimes they're plastic. This particular one is bone, but that is called the saddle. And then down here we just have the pegs. I don't know what they're actually called, but they're pegs, and they hold the strings in place. Okay, this particular guitar is called an electroacoustic because it actually has a plug-in down here, and it has controls for sound up here. Most guitars, well, I wouldn't say most, but quite a few have this feature now, but there are still plain electrics, and they're just as good as anything out there. So let's go over what I mentioned earlier about the nut. The reason the nut is important is because a lot of people when they don't fret a note that they're not actually playing a note, but you have to understand that each note is going to vibrate because you're going to have a distance between the nut and the bridge or the saddle, and you're going to have, as you move up, as you press down on any given space, it's going to contact the string on the fret and therefore shorten the distance of vibration between the saddle and wherever you are. What I mean by that is, if I play here, that E note is vibrating because it's vibrating between here and here. As I shorten this distance, so if I push down on 5, it's now contacting the string on the 5th fret here, and therefore the string can only vibrate from here to here. And so you get a higher note. This is the open, and this is the higher note. So it's important to understand that as you're playing, some of the notes that you play will be fretted, and some of the notes you play will be open, but they're still notes all in the same. Okay? There is a way that you can remember the names of the strings right off the bat. Like I said, if you're using the GA tuner and you use it enough, you'll remember the strings just because you're tuning them, and it'll be displaying the letter already on the tuner itself. However, if you want to remember the strings, there's lots of mnemonics out there that talk about this, that give you a little phrase to remember this. Some of the ones I've heard are, and we're going to start with the low working to the high, right? And it's essentially the first letter of each one of these words. Eminem always destroys great big egos. Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Elephants and donkeys grow big ears. Each one of these will give you E, A, D, G, B, and E. And that's a pretty straightforward, easier way to remember the strings. So grab one of those phrases and remember it, and it'll help you to remember the notes of the strings. The other thing that I need to go over, a lot of students get confused on this, is that as we're teaching and as we're going through songs, once in a while I'm going to ask you to go up the fretboard. If you're going up the neck, it's important to understand that this is up the neck, okay, as we move upward. Some people, because they're looking at a guitar like this, they think that this is up the neck. But as you play guitar, this is going up the neck. And it's easy to hear because if you're playing notes and moving up, you can hear that that's going up. So basically that's the anatomy of the guitar. So why don't we move on and start talking about notes and frets and actually playing a song. So we'll see you on the next module.